I am Elaine Gardner. I am a clinical nutritionist and holistic health educator. And today I have as my guest Camille Wilcox. And I hope that you'll join us today and stay through. Camille has a really interesting background because she was raised in a different way than most people are. So she'll have a really unique story. But also we're going to talk a lot about immunity and mindset around immunity. So I hope you'll stay tuned and that will serve you well. So welcome, Camille. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So I would like you to start with your upbringing because you were raised by in a more holistic mindset, which is just certainly there are some people that were raised in that way, but there's not a lot of people. So it's more the exception than the norm. Yeah. And so I would like you to share with me what that was all about. What was your mom like? What was your lifestyle like?
So my mother is a master herbalist and was a midwife when I was growing up. And I was raised on a dairy farm. And so we grew a garden and raised our own animals. And as far as I knew, when I was growing up, we just had a very normal life. I don't think I noticed when I was young that my friends went to the doctor and we didn't for checkups and things like that. I did go to the doctor twice when I was growing up. Once when I got my foot run over by a horse, and once when I got stepped on by a horse, and once when I got run over by a tractor. So. Oh
wow.
The whole time I was growing up. So and it was a very like country farm doctor, I wouldn't be surprised if he also saw horses in his office.
So you went for injuries, but you never went to a doctor, not even for like yearly physicals or anything?
No, and my mother also, when we were growing up, was an EMT. And so, even a lot of the emergent stuff she could handle on her own.
Okay, so I don't know if everybody knows what EMT is, but that's emergency medical technician. Those are usually people that are staffing ambulances, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so she had a lot of emergency skills as well. Were there any emergencies at your home that she handled that you remember?
I can't think of any.
Okay.
I can't think of any that I remember.
So I imagine that you and do you have siblings?
Yes, I have 2 sisters and 5 brothers.
Okay, so you had a big family, and I imagine there was colds and flus and a variety of tummy aches and things like that. So what kind of things would happen in your home when people were not feeling well? Or what parents do for themselves when they were not feeling well?
So we had 2 fridges. One for, like the food. And then again, because it was a dairy farm, we had a fridge that just had like gallons of milk in it. And, and then that was also the fridge that had, I would say most of the fridge contained tinctures. So when I was growing up, I don't ever remember making the tinctures with her, but there was always tinctures in the fridge. My little sister used to go in and just, when she was really little, like 2.5, she would go in and just start, giving herself droppers of stuff in the fridge because my mother learned how to do glycerin extractions instead of the alcohol or vinegar extractions. And so, so it tasted kind of good. And my little sister one time was going along and dosing herself up with all the different bottles, whatever she wanted, until she got to the cayenne. And then after that, but, I don't, I know it seems so silly. Maybe it's just because it was such a part of our upbringing. I don't really remember being sick, and I don't really remember ever being told to, being dosed up with stuff. I'm sure that we did. I'm sure that we took vitamins, and I'm sure that we, had tinctures when we were sick, but I don't know. It's kind of, there's that whole, the meme going around that if you were raised like this, then you're immune to coronavirus. I kind of feel like being raised on a dairy farm makes you immune to everything.
So many interesting points there. So let's hold on the immunity piece and go back to the tinctures for a minute, because I'm not sure if everybody knows what that is. And tinctures are just herbs or plant material prepared in a certain way to make them extract the therapeutic or medicinal properties of them, and also preserve them so that they are an easy to consume format. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So in plant medicine, goes back, you know, to the beginning of time. There's documentation, if the history is correct, that the first people on the planet were understanding the therapeutic or medicinal benefits of certain plants and would use them for, you know, they would make poultices or packs of things that they could put on their skin if they had injuries or infections, or take things by mouth, like prepared in that way that would help their bodies heal from whatever was going on with them. So that kind of plant medicine goes back in time for sure. So that's really cool that you had a whole refrigerator full of tinctures, and that your little sister was potentially dosing herself, because without the alcohol in it, there was no risk to it. It was just good nutrients.
Just good plant medicine, right?
Yeah.
Good nutrients. Yeah.
Other, it's harder to describe the therapeutic aspects of herbs than it is, you know, everybody knows what nutrients are, but people are less familiar with the phytochemical footprints or the therapeutic values of herbs, but they can be really, really powerful. So with the cayenne, I love the story about the cayenne, because cayenne is really, really hot. So yeah, there's something that most people wouldn't be interested in for sure.
Yeah.
And so you made a really great point about saying that you think that, you know, having grown up on a dairy farm, that you're immune to everything. And how do I want to start with that? Because there's so many different angles. So I think let's start with the germ theory a little bit, because most people have been raised in a way to believe that germs are bad.
Right.
They're going to be harmful, and that we need to avoid them and be sanitized. And there is absolutely some truth to that. You know, we know that the medical world shifted dramatically when we started to understand the concept of germs, and they actually started to sterilize instruments and wash their hands. And so they weren't taking microbes from the last patient to the new patient. You know, it changed the healing world dramatically for sure. But we've also, in that, we neglected to cover the fact that a lot of microbes are actually beneficial to our body and actually essential to our body. And as the research with the gut microbiome and probiotics and things of that nature unfold, we now know that there are nutrients, there are microbes that are absolutely essential to our health, including all kinds of bacteria. So not everything is pathogenic. And then moving into what you said about having grown up on a dairy farm and being outdoors, when we were raised in those environments or outdoors all the time, we had our hands in the dirt, we were around animals, we were around a lot of microbes. Our immune systems were constantly being activated and being sensitized and developing defenses and fine-tuning, is this healthy, is this unhealthy, and then developing the mechanisms constantly to combat what was potentially dangerous, and then to encourage what was super, super helpful. So there was a whole symbiotic process going on between what we were exposed to and how it was affecting our bodies. And we don't have that level of exposure anymore. You know, we live in these sterile environments, or we're surrounded by chemicals. So we're not developing that, we don't have that connection to the outside world in the same way most people don't.
Yeah.
So I think really, really interesting concept that, you know, not only was your mom was able to handle things that came that way, but you were also developing your immunity in a much stronger way than the way most people are raised and were able to develop their immunity.
Yeah. I mean, we had, I remember just going out and picking a carrot out of the garden and dusting it off and eating it, you know. We grew a garden, we drank raw milk. It was very, you know, now, knowing what I know now, I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I could raise my kids on a dairy farm, right? Like, I know it wasn't an easy thing to do. You know, it's hard work, certainly, but the value in that, just like you said, that exposure to all of those elements and all of those germs, and all of my siblings are healthy and, you know,
right,
healthy,
like
strong adults.
I think that also is a really important point to, so our modern lives are easier in some ways. So, all right, let's step back for a minute. So if you were raised the way that you were, and you were really poor and you didn't have a lot of food, that scenario of being out in that environment with that level of exposure could have actually been detrimental to you. You could have all been sickly if you didn't have quality food, but because you had your own garden, you had the raw milk, your bodies were getting nutrient dense, wholesome foods on a day-to-day basis. That's like the foundation of everything. It's bolstering everything. So then that exposure that you came into with all those microbes, your body was actually strong enough to get stronger with those things as opposed to getting weaker with those things. And I think that's one of the things about today is that people aren't putting enough emphasis on is getting back to that. What am I eating? What is the quality of the food that I'm eating? What are the basics? What are the foundational pieces of a strong body? And then when we have the foundational pieces in place, when we get these exposures, our immune systems can be more active. They can go to work for us, and then we can do those, adding anything in additional at that time. But those foundational pieces have to be in place, otherwise you are susceptible.
Yeah.
So let's move on until as you got older. So growing up on the farm, were you in public school?
Yeah, when we lived on the farm, yes. I was. Well, I was homeschooled for kindergarten. First grade through, I think, fourth grade, public school, but it was a very, very small community. Like there were 14 kids in my class. I was one of 14.
Oh, that is small. Wow.
So, and then I was homeschooled for, I think it was fourth grade, maybe fifth. And then went back to public school for sixth grade. And then we moved off the dairy farm and moved to Southern Utah. So, so then then we did homeschool from there until when I went to high school. I did like my electives at the high school and then my core classes at home.
Okay, so you kind of had your feet in both doors at that time. Was there a time in your life when things started to really come to your attention that the way that you had been raised and your beliefs and the strength of your body and your health were different than most people's?
Not necessarily. So when I was in high school, I had this really great group of friends whose parents were also very crunchy, right? Very aware of nutrition and practiced nutritional therapy and herbal therapy and all of those things. And so I was really lucky in high school to have, had that support system. Of course, I still had the, normal high school girl insecurities of, does that boy like me or whatever, but I didn't feel like that I was super different. The one thing that I think that I didn't like about high school was that I was homeschooled for that, for the core classes. I do remember being like, man, I wish I could just go to like math class like everybody else. But I never felt that about nutrition or, I remember we used to joke a lot because I think when I was in high school, my mom was a vegetarian and she didn't make us practice vegetarianism, but we would tease her a lot about it and be like, oh, we're eating cheese, so we were kind of stinkers that way. But yeah, no, as far as that goes, when I was first with my husband, that I'm with, my current husband, I remember when he and I were first together and we had this conversation. We'd been together for about 6 months and he was like, I just don't know if this is going to work. You're just too weird. And I was like, well, too bad. It's going to work. It's going to work. Like, we're going to make this work because we love each other. And so we're going to make it work. And we really have. But
he was referring to your upbringing and your idea.
Yeah. So what happened was our son had gotten sick when we were at my in-laws' house. My husband was deployed at the time and we had gone to my in-laws, the kids and I had gone up there and my son got really, really sick and his tonsils, and adenoids were super swollen. I'd never seen them that bad before. And my brain didn't even think about like children's Tylenol or anything like that. Like it didn't even register. I was like, oh, I need an onion. And so like and she didn't have an onion in the house. And so his aunt brought an onion over, and I did an onion poultice on his chest. And it's where you like chop up an onion and warm it up for a few seconds in the microwave to kind of activate that sulfur. And then you put it on the chest, wrap it up, and then send him to bed. And he woke up and his throat was fine and everything. But my husband called me the next day when I was on my way home, and he was like, "What did you do?" So apparently as soon as I left, my mother-in-law called him and was just like, "An onion?" She's like, "My house smells like cheeseburgers," you know? And so I was like, he was like, "You know, my mom has children's Tylenol." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." You know what I mean? So.
That is actually a great example. Do you have any other stories about things that have happened? Like where you, like you said, your mind didn't even go to that, the medicine, or let's go to the doctor. I have these tools and this is what I pulled out.
Well, so we have a blended family. I have 2 kids from my first marriage, and he has one from his first marriage. And then now we have 4 more together. And so, so his daughter that he brought into our family was like, well, I know now, and I knew then, but you know, before he met me, he didn't know. She's very, very sensitive to dairy, and she was formula fed, and really loved. She had like a yogurt every day, you know, and stuff like that. And she's kind of got a sweet tooth, and so she ate a lot of, you know, unhealthy foods. And she was that child that had like the tubes in her ears, chronic ear infections. She was like pre-asthmatic. I guess, you know, she one time got diagnosed with, you know, pre-asthmatic and all of that. And so we had our child together. And when our little girl, our 4th child, was about 2 years old, she got her first ear infection. She was like 2.5. And I was like, "Oh, poor little Peanut has her first ear infection." And he was like, he like did a double take, and he's like, wait. "Did you just say this is her first ear infection?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, she's like 2.5." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I think by the time Cassie was 2.5, we'd been in the hospital like 30 times with ear infections." And then he goes, "Wait, when was the last time Cassie had an ear infection?" And I was like, "Well, it's been about 2.5 years." And he was like, "Have any of our kids been to the hospital or to the doctor in the last 2.5 years?" I mean, like, it was really like all of the things were clicking for him, right? All the light bulbs were going on. And I was like, "No, they haven't." And he was just like, "Oh my word." He's like, "I just can't believe it. I think by the time Cassie was that age, I'd spent $50,000 on doctor's bills." And, you know, he just couldn't believe it. It was really, you know, and so that moment was really kind of the moment where he was just like, "You do whatever you want." One time, one time a couple of years ago, he was on his way home so for some reason, I don't remember why, but he took a couple of the kids up to a family Christmas party. And then I was down here doing something else. And on his way home, he called me, and he said, "My cousin's kid had hand, foot, and mouth. And Jessie, our little 4-year-old now," he's like, "Jessie was playing with her kids, and what should I do?" We didn't find out until after we left the party that they had that. And I said, "Well, okay, you're going to get home before me, but as soon as you get home, I want you to put him in a ginger bath and, you know, and give him we have a formula called Propolis Plus that I said, give him some Propolis Plus and put him in a ginger bath." And he was just like, "You know that doesn't do anything except for make the bathtub dirty, right?" And I was like, "Richard, none of our kids have gone to the hospital or to the doctor's office in like forever. So I know what I'm talking about." And he was like, "You're right." And so he came home, put him in the tub. It worked.
Yeah, so he was living it, but didn't realize it until a couple years in. And then the next time a crisis came up, he still defaulted into that old mindset, like this is out of our control and we need to, whatever, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But then you reeled him in and reminded him.
I was like, "Just trust me. I know what I'm talking about."
It wasn't an emergency situation where you were putting anybody at risk or anything like that by not seeking immediate medical attention. I think that thing is, you know, some people view people in the holistic realm as being against the medical community. And I couldn't feel more strongly that that is not true at all. The medical community is so good at so many things.
Yeah.
And then there's things they're not good at, which is, where we need to fill in the gaps. And I also think, like you've done with yourself and your family, it's tremendously important for us to take personal responsibility for what we can. And so that, of course, is limited by our experiences and our mindset and our education and our capabilities. But we are in control of our own bodies, and it's everybody can seize control of what they eat and their sleeping patterns and movement and hydration. And so all of those basic foundational pieces, those are all personal responsibility.
Yeah.
People can help you with that for sure. And there's lots of great people that can steer you in the right direction when you don't have that information. But it's really, really important. And when you have those foundational pieces in place, then when you get in trouble, it's going to be a lot less severe. And when you're, you'll know who to seek. Like when you got injured when you were little, you went to the hospital. When you just had a cold, it was something that could be handled at home. So knowing who to seek out in those times is really important. So now that you know, your children are not being raised in the same way that you were, you're not on the dairy farm. I'd love to hear about what you do with your kids, like from a nutritional perspective. Do you still have access to good quality food? Is it from farms? Is it from the store? So how do you keep their general foundational health up so that they are not as susceptible to getting sick like you when you were explaining about your daughter?
Well, first of all, we don't drink milk in our house. I mean, we have milk in the house, you know, and my kids will put it on cereal or granola, or we use it in recipes, but we don't drink milk in our house. In fact, my toddler, I have him a little bit brainwashed, or my 4-year-old, I guess he's a preschooler now, not a toddler, but he tells me if he's sick, he'll be like, I can't have any milk or any sugar that will make me sicker. Like, you know, so that's just like, if people in the house, if somebody is not feeling well, they know no milk, you know, no dairy products, no sugar, you know, just simple things that that make a big difference if you are feeling unwell. I try to do organic as much as possible. I try to support our local farmers market and CSA as often as possible. We have been lucky enough because my husband has family that has a farm. And so whenever possible, we try to get, you know, some fresh beef, fresh grass-fed beef, and we hunt, you know, so we have venison. We have currently four hunters in our family, 4 that are old enough to hunt. And so, I mean, that's 4 tags every year, and that's a good amount of venison for the freezer. So let's see here. We haven't grown a garden in a couple of years just because life has gotten just crazy with as many children as we have. But we used to grow a garden and process and can and freeze a lot of our own foods. When I was growing up, and I've told my kids this, and I hope they remember it the way that I did, but I remember my mom saying, you cannot eat dinner without at least 1 vegetable. Most of the time you have to have 2 vegetables with your main dish, with your dinner. And that's the way that I was raised. And so that's the way that I am raising my children is, itchy nose. You know, when we have dinner, I would say we have a green salad with our dinner at least 5 nights a week, and then another vegetable with that. You know, my kids, and the thing is that when they were when my older kids were little and we did grow a garden, we made it fun so that they would enjoy their vegetables, you know? So it really starts when they're small. You can't, you know, wait until they're 8 years old and then be like, hey, Brussels sprouts, you know? And so when we were growing our garden, the year that we were blending our family, we had a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a baby. And we would go out in the garden and we would get a bell pepper and cut the top off of it and then fill it with water, and we'd be like, oh, look, it's a cup that you can eat. That's so fun. And so they would drink their water and then eat the cup, right? Little things like that, I think, have really helped them to grow up with this, a palate that appreciates and enjoys vegetables. Plus, my children were all breastfed, and, we all know that helps, develop a flavor palette for whatever the mother's eating. And, I eat a lot of vegetables, so.
Right. So you've been raising your kids with good nutrients and focusing on lots of organic, if possible, whenever possible. You mentioned vegetables a lot, and properly raised meat, like the wild caught venison and the grass-fed. And those are important distinctions, because some people think they're doing fine because they're eating a few vegetables a day, and that's great. Of course, it's much better than eating, I don't know, just plain pasta or something like that, or boxed food. But if you're eating conventionally grown produce and it has a lot of pesticides in it, there is still a risk to your system there. It's very demanding for your liver and your other detoxification organs to remove those things from your body. It can cause hormone disruption. So yes, vegetables are a better choice than, I don't know, some package. I can't even.
Right. So fresh is better than canned, and organic is better than traditional,
Or like,
so there's like, it's like good, better, best.
Better than just the frozen pizza kind of thing, but organic is better, and then properly raised animal products. So those are really important distinctions. And I wanted to highlight that you had said about sugar, which is such an important point. There's so many people are addicted to sugar, for one, and then there's a lot of hidden sugar in boxed cereals and granola bars and things that a lot of people live on.
Ketchup, everything. It's in everything.
Bottled sauces, and sugar is inflammatory to the body.
Mm-hmm.
So it causes inflammation. It suppresses your immune system, and microbes like viruses love it. They feed off of it. So when you're eating sugar, especially when you're compromised already and you have a cold or a flu, that's actually giving a food source to the microbes that your body's trying to get rid of. So that's definitely can be a massive problem for people. So tell me your position on milk, though. You mentioned when the kids are sick, you don't drink milk in your house, but you have it. But particularly when the kids are sick, why no dairy products?
So dairy products increase the mucus response in the body, right? So you drink a glass of milk and you get that like phlegm in the back of your throat, or eat a bowl of ice cream, right? That's the body's response to dairy. And actually, I want to say that in the United States, only an average of like 1 in 5 people even have the ability to digest dairy properly. And in other cultures, like in Asian cultures, I think it's even less than that. I think it's like 1 in 7. Or sorry, 1 in 7. So we do nut milks sometimes. That's what I do.
I just wanted to point that out, because a lot of people, there's a lot of don't do dairy, don't do gluten, and just like blanket statements. And oftentimes people aren't explaining why they're recommending that you don't do those things. So I just wanted to give explanations, and people can play with that, experiment with those kind of things and see what works best for them. But a lot of people do say that dairy is mucus producing, and I'm sure it is for some people. And then going back to that quality issue, organic is going to be a much better choice. But almost all commercial milk is pasteurized, because it's illegal in many places to sell raw milk, and raw milk is we could have a whole conversation about raw milk in and of itself.
We could talk about enzymes and
raw milk's a whole different beast, and it falls into a totally different category. So so let's just say, instead of going into that topic, if dairy is something that you're interested in having in your life, I would encourage you to do the research to find out what the rules are around raw milk in your state, and see if you can get some if you're interested in trying it, because the body responds to it very, very differently. And it's very antimicrobial as well for some people. Of course, it has to be raised properly and all of that kind of thing. So really interesting conversation. Okay, is there anything else about the way that you raise your children that you would want to share, just that you think, particularly in light of the current situation that we're in with we're several weeks into the first confirmed cases of the coronavirus, and it's massively spreading at this point in time. There's a lot of fear and panic and uncertainty. And So I'd just like to know what your personal response is, and if you've changed anything in the way that you're eating, or what you're doing in your home, or what you're feeding your kids, or what you're sharing with your children about this epidemic. I think that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. So I have, so my children are almost separated into two different groups, right? We have the older four. Our oldest is a senior in high school. And then our fourth child is almost 12. And so they kind of, they're the ones that are doing online school. They understand kind of what's going on. As far as the fear of the virus goes, I don't think that any of us are really very, they haven't been worried about it, I don't think, as far as like, oh my gosh, the virus is coming and we're all going to die. And I wonder how much of that is because of, the way that they've been raised. We have been adding, so normally, like during the wintertime, during the school season, my kids take additional, I supplement them additionally with vitamin D and beta carotene. And then their regular multivitamin, which is the one that we eat, is that we take as a food-based multivitamin. And so they're already taking those immune boosting supplements anyways. So we really don't have, our kids don't get sick very often. When they do, we get right on top of it with herbs. And so my older kids know that, like, they'll come up and be like, oh, Mom, my throat hurts. And I'm like, okay, go take this and this and this, and they'll just go in and start taking whatever, vitamin C and zinc. And we have a couple of formulas that, that I'd say, go take a Biodefense, or go take the Propolis Plus, or whatever it is that is the formula for whatever their symptoms are. So they're already taking that stuff anyways to kind of build up their immune system. Because of the coronavirus, we've been doing a lot more mushrooms this week, the last couple of weeks. We've been doing a lot more cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cruciferous vegetables, or the vegetables that, it's a family of vegetables, including like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. I think onions are also cruciferous. And those vegetables have a lot of nutrients that help not only boost the immune system, but also strengthen the lungs. And so, so we've been doing a lot of that this week. In the last couple of weeks anyways. And then I've also added zinc to their daily supplements.
So you're focusing on the things that you had already been focused on. You brought in some additional vegetables that have the kind of nutrients that support the immune system. And like you mentioned, particularly supporting the lungs, kept up their daily doses of multivitamins and D and things that you give them normally anyway. And you have a stash of things on hand if somebody gets some type of symptoms. And a lot of that is based on your own upbringing and your skills. That brings up a really interesting point, though, is, again, going back to, first and foremost, it's the foundational pieces of having the healthy lifestyle in place, and then doing additional things, some of which you do no matter what's going on, like adding vitamin D, which is a nutrient that most people across the world have difficulty getting enough of because we don't spend as much time outdoors anymore. And there's a lot of things that are missing. It's one of those things that are missing from our food supply as our food supply has shifted. So it's always a good idea. I am a huge fan of supplementation. It's what I use in my clinical nutrition practice. And there is a massive amount of, it's really, the supplement world is vast. It's very, very confusing. And there is a huge variety of quality available. Up until this point, I would always say heavily weighing on the inferior side. So lots and lots of product available, most of which I would not recommend that people take.
Yeah.
I am definitely seeing, even just in the last year or two, a rise in companies that are doing a really, really good job. So I'm so excited that there's more companies that are on the bandwagon now. And I don't think that they are outpacing products that are not of good quality, but it's really, really exciting to see so many better quality products coming to market, something I'm always trying to keep up with. So if you want to,
and it's really nice to to see that the reason why is because the consumers are getting more educated about that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really encouraging to know that people are recognizing the difference in the quality of products and demanding a better quality product. And that's why these better products are out there now, or more of them are out there now.
That's a really great point. And just want to, like, supplements are named supplements because they're not replacements. So the foundational pieces are still those, you know, the good nutrition, the good quality lifestyle, and supplements are in addition to, like what I was mentioning with the D, when we can't get enough because we're inside all the time, that's a supplement. It doesn't mean that you can replace it, any of the good quality food that you're eating. It's meant to be in addition to. And
yeah, you can't out supplement a bad diet.
exactly. But there's a lot of nutrients that are deficient or missing from our food supply because of the way that we farm and ship and prepare. So supplements are an incredibly valuable tool when they're of good quality, and they're not necessarily risky when they're of poor quality. It's the likelihood of them harming you per se is pretty low, but they can cause some problems in the body for sure. They can increase the level of deficiencies in your body. They can accumulate in your body if they're not breaking down properly. So I just wanted to share that and ask you about some of the brands that you use, and if there's anything. We already covered the D, and like a lot of people are talking about vitamin C because it's definitely something that you can use to boost your immune system, and zinc and like that. But so if you would just want to comment about your favorite companies and products, and if there's anything that you would recommend above what you've already said.
Oh yeah. So so my mom actually started her own company of herbal supplements because of the quality issue. She has been doing health consulting for like 30 years. And she would tell people, you know, oh, go to the store and get this, you know, go to the store and get some alfalfa, or go to the store and get some, I don't know, wormwood, right? Or St. John's wort or whatever. And, you know, and then the people would come back a few weeks later and she would say, well, how are you doing? And they're like, oh, I just, you know, I don't know. And she would say, well, what brand did you get? And they would just say, you know, like, oh, I got, you know, blah, blah, blah at Walmart. And she's like, no, I told you to get this brand. And I told you to get this brand for a reason. And it's because of the quality. And so she started her own line of herbal supplements, and including, you know, we have that line of glycerin extractions that she kind of created when we were growing up. And so we have, the name of the company is Vicki Sorensen's Nature Works. It's vsnatureworks.com. And I use a lot of, so all of our capsulated products that the kids and I and my husband take are that brand, just because I know the quality. We also really like the Da Vinci brand. Da Vinci is a pharmaceutical grade quality products, and we use Da Vinci for like our beta carotene that we take. That's another thing that my kids take on a daily basis is beta carotene. Let me think, what else have I got in my cabinet? I have a lot of NatureWorks labels in my cabinet. I'm trying to think. I think that those are the two main ones, is Da Vinci, and then and Pure Encapsulations is also a good one, and then NatureWorks. So those are, I would say, the three majority that I have in my cabinet.
You've mentioned the beta carotene a couple times. That is the synthetic form of vitamin A, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, your body converts beta carotene into vitamin A. So if you're taking a vitamin A supplement, it is possible for your body to, you know, with some supplements, it's better to take something that your body will convert into that than to take that itself, because there is a possibility of vitamin A toxicity, especially in pregnancy. And so, so we take beta carotene just to, you know, then your body can choose how much it wants to convert, and then what it doesn't use, it's water soluble. So
I just want to make a point about that, because a synthetic is made in a lab. from a non-food source usually. And as you're mentioning, when it's from a reputable source and you know how it works and converts in the body, it can be very effective. A
Yeah.
lot of synthetics are made from GMO corn and things like that. And that's the vast majority of what you're going to find, like vitamin C. If it says ascorbic acid on the label,
Yeah.
it's likely come from some type of corn that's genetically modified. And unless there's a USDA organic or non-GMO project verification label on that bottle, it's likely that it is genetically modified. So the synthetics can be a little bit tricky. Which is why, especially if you're just starting out on a journey, working with somebody who understands the ins and outs of not only the quality of supplements, but exactly what your body needs so that you're not guessing and you're not overdosing or, like I said, likely to cause a problem for you. But if you're going to spend money on a supplement, you want it to be a good quality and you want it to work in your body and get the results that you're looking for. So,
and you want it to be, like, you want your vitamins to be food-based as often as possible, right? Your supplements, you want to make sure that, so we have a food-based vitamin C that I buy. I do like the Dr. Schultz Super C. It's you look at the label and it has like fruit on the label. And I think it has like some, it might have jalapenos in it or something, some foods that are very, very high in a bioavailable form of vitamin C. So it doesn't do you any good to take a whole bunch of vitamins that your body isn't absorbing, right?
Absolutely.
Like I'm sure a lot of people have heard that whole, it's just expensive pee. You need to make sure that it's a bioavailable source. So when you're taking minerals, you want to try to find a mineral that's chelated. And chelated means that it's linked with amino acids so your body can actually absorb it, or find it in a food source.
Exactly. Yeah, agreed 100%. As far as when it's available from a food source, it's going to be something that your body recognizes and utilizes much more easily. And the other thing is that the science of nutrition and understanding nutrients is fairly new. And science is always continuously discovering new nutrients per se, or new things like bioflavonoids or cofactors. But when you from a food, if you get like a nutrient from C from a food source, you're getting all of the enzymes, the cofactors, the bioflavonoids, all the things that science hasn't yet identified that's in there. So you get all the synergy of everything, so it works beautifully in your body. So it's a really important point. So I just want to wrap things up by asking if you have any other advice. Like if you were to, I don't know, do you have any friends that are feeling really fearful or panicky, or family members because they were raised differently? Like, what words of advice do you have for people that don't have that holistic mindset, that haven't had their diets dialed in, that don't know how to use supplements in order to strengthen their immune system? What kind of advice would you give somebody? Like, where do they start, or how do you get them to calm down or be comfortable with, like, you're going to be able to get through this?
So I feel like when you're starting out, that it's really important, especially with your diet, to think of like, eat this, not that, right? So like, instead of Fruit Loops, get Raisin Bran, right? Like those little steps can make a big difference, right? Instead of regular lettuce, get organic lettuce. If you're on kind of a budget, I think a lot of people have heard of the Dirty Dozen. They're, the top 12 fruits and vegetables that are that have the most pesticides and herbicides typically on them. So, if you don't eat everything organic, at least try to get those fruits and vegetables organic. Apples, strawberries. I think kale is on that list now, which is really kind of a bummer. Lettuce,
For 1 second, because that study that is pulled together by the Environmental Working Group, and they just their 2020 version of that. So you can get that at www.ewg.org and Dirty Dozen. So they have a brand new list out there.
Yeah.
So
start by doing that, and start by adding more, do the, it's not a meal if you don't have 2 vegetables with it. And don't just think about that for dinner either. Think about how you could add a vegetable to breakfast. What vegetables could you add to your breakfast or to your lunch or whatever, it's surprising. Green beans actually go really, really well with fried eggs. Who knew? So, I mean, just adding more fruits and vegetables to your diet and trying to make them organic as much as possible. Let me think, you know, switching to whole wheat bread from white bread, and trying to do nut milk instead of drinking milk, you know, or trying to just not drink milk, or, you know, switching from soda to like a sparkling water, or,
Right. Yeah.
you know, so yeah, there are so many simple little switches that you can make that will make a huge difference in your overall health, right? And so these little things is where you can start, because I know when you tell people like, oh, you need to eat better, and then they're used to like macaroni and cheese and pizza rolls and hot pockets, you know, or whatever, they're just like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming, I don't even know what to do, right? So like, add a salad with your hot pocket. Start there. Yep. Then once you've got that habit down, right, that habit of eating more vegetables, then switch your hot pocket out for maybe a casserole that you make yourself. And then, you know, like it's an evolution. And even, you know, myself, like my nutrition has been an evolution, and it's continuous. You know, we still go out to eat every now and then. Not so much right now, but again, you know, it's the same thing too with that. So if you're going to eat out, try to support a small local business instead of going like Taco Bell or McDonald's, because not only are you going to get better tasting food, but it's probably going to be better quality. So it may not be ideal, it may not be perfect, but if you go support your local, you know, little Mexican joint instead of Taco Bell, not only are you stimulating your local economy, but you're probably going to be getting better food. So, so yeah, like making those little tiny switches can make a big impact on your overall health and your life. And so yeah, that's my, and finding someone to help you. If you don't know how to do that, find someone that can help you and guide you in like making these changes.
Yeah, actually, so I would agree about making little changes like that. When people ask me, well, what they should eat, I'm like, take what you're eating now and make it all organic, or start adding some fruits and vegetables that go with your quality immediately, and then move along little by little. And also, I want to add a note about there's a lot more people that can help you, and there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of people in different camps. So some people are, you know, eat vegan or eat paleo, and any food plan or suggestions that encourage you to eat real food, especially if it's organic, non-GMO, really good quality, is something that's worth consideration for sure. Mm-hmm. Find, as I did, that you don't fit neatly into one of those little systems, and that there'll be some kind of recommendation within that it doesn't work for your body. So I just wanted to add, like, no matter what you're eating, even if it's good quality, if it doesn't feel right in your body, that it may not be the right food for you. Like, I don't tolerate nuts, and I was eating, you know, organic and soaked and all of the right things, and I can't. They actually cause tremendous pain in my body. So listen to yourself as well. And then if you're looking, you always want to be questioning the resource too, not because we're getting information with a lot more integrity, and that's well-intentioned for sure, but there are still some people that are just trying to make money, and again, it's based on their education, and they may not have all of the information they need to actually be able to relate good quality information to you. So you want to make sure.
And I feel like a little bit of common sense goes a long way.
Yeah,
yeah, that, you know, any food plan that is like super restrictive and restricts like entire food groups, it's probably not a great plan. You know, we have all of these foods, and our bodies need these foods, but I feel like, you know, I feel like a little bit of common sense goes a long way. So, you know, some of the things, I was actually going to write a blog post about this a couple months ago, about the things that all of these diets have in common, right? What do paleo and keto and Weight Watchers and all of these have in common? And do you know what they all have in common? More vegetables and less carbohydrates. The American diet is very, very high in processed foods and carbohydrates. And so if you just start cutting back on your processed foods and refined carbohydrates, and start eating more complex carbs, more fruits, more vegetables, whole grains, and different whole grains, not just wheat, quinoa and buckwheat and millet and all of those, you're going to be healthier. And again, and listening to your body, right? So even me,
Right.
like I'm sensitive to gluten, and so it's just not something that I can do.
Right. All good advice. Yep. So we have a lot more control over our own health than we've been led to believe. There are lots of camps, but everyone has their own innate intelligence, and we can discern for ourselves what feels right in our bodies when it's good quality. If it's been hijacked and tinkered with and chemicals and whatnot, it's very, very difficult to actually feel if that's a good food for your body. Well, it's obviously not a good food for your body, and then you can't feel whether something else is working for you because you have all those chemicals in your system.
Yeah.
We live in challenging times for sure, but I feel like we are heading in the right direction for sure. The amount of resources and better quality products has shifted exponentially since I started my own healing process 20 years ago. So it's easier now than ever before. And again, there's a lot more holistic people, all kinds of practitioners and health coaches and things that can help people as well. So you don't have to do it alone for sure. So I want to thank you so much for your time today. Your kiddos were so good. I haven't heard a peep from.
I know. I'm so proud of them.
Is there anything else you want to say in parting? Any words of wisdom?
Just that, we're all in this together. Wash your hands, practice social distancing, and eat right. And try not to stress too much about this, because fear and stress actually does affect the immune system as well. And so, the best offense is a good defense, right? So work to get your immune system and your body as healthy as possible. And even if you do come across any disease, it will be less severe. You'll recover faster and easier. And then the other thing too is that I actually, I have been doing a lot of research in the last couple of weeks and found that zinc supplementation in the elderly population reduces their risk of developing pneumonia by like 30%, which is huge. And so if you have somebody that you love that is in a sensitive group, I would try to get some zinc supplementation. And again, it probably ought to be a chelated form, because your body doesn't absorb minerals without amino acids, or not well. Or, eat a lot of mushrooms, because they're a good source of vitamin D and zinc.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.